So yeah, it's been only a week since our debate, so we are doing it all over again. So thank you so much for coming back again. You must have had lots of fun last week.
Yeah, look, it's just an exciting time with launching a new company, Full Stack Modeler. It's a great time for financial modelers. There's a lot on, and yeah, being locked down in Melbourne, I guess you got to do something. So why don't you start a company, right?
Why not? Why not? So I'm glad to hear you guys are starting to come out of lockdown. So it's about time.
Yeah, slowly. I think we've been released from jail and we're now on parole, as I saw in the headlines on the newspaper. So
yes,
we're not out of it yet, fully, but hopefully soon.
Wow, this is certainly a very, very popular topic. It's massive. This is probably the biggest turnout we've ever had. This is absolutely huge. So Lance, if you don't know Lance Rubin, he is a financial modelling specialist. He is the CEO of Model Citizen, and he's also the co-founder of this new financial modelling startup called Full Stack Modeler, which I'm sure he'll tell you more about. So yeah, welcome. Let's get started in just a minute. Just a bit of housekeeping, just make sure, just so I can see lots and lots of people on chat. So use the chat to say hi to everybody. If you see someone on there, and any sort of comments, we get lots and lots of commentary in the chat, and certainly with a crowd like this, I'm sure that we will. If there is a particular question that you want answered though, use the Q&A at the bottom. We are simultaneously streaming live on YouTube, so feel free to use the chat on YouTube as well, or the chat in Zoom, wherever you're coming in from. So we're going to get started just by I'm just going to pop a poll up there for those of you who are joining us on Zoom. Power BI is, we can see by the popularity, a really very popular thing to learn nowadays. It's something everybody wants to know, and financial modelling, and certainly three-way financial modelling, is something that's a really important skill to have in finance, and they don't normally kind of go, the two of them together. So I'm really interested to see Lance's approach on this. So we're getting lots and lots of feedback here in the poll. So we want to know how much experience, everybody who is joining us today, how much experience have you had with Power BI? Are you wondering what Power BI is and want to know more about it? Have you opened just a few times, or spending a lot of time, cannot crack it, or you are a bit of an expert? So I'm going to end the polling and I'm going to just share the results, so you should be able to see the results. So lots and lots of people said that Power BI is awesome and are ready to get more advanced. So quite a bit of different people who are joining us there today. So we've got another poll that I'm just going to share now. I think Lance would really like to know what you struggle with most when you're using Power BI. So do you want to talk to that one, Lance?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about my own journey through Power BI and some of the struggles that I had trying to get my, as I said, shoving my model into Power BI. Initially, that was sort of my biggest challenge. But with any new technology and any tool, there are new challenges that you come up. As you cross one obstacle, you get another one. So just trying to get a sense of where everyone's up to. I avoided DAX like the plague. I avoided MScript like the plague. I said, I don't need that stuff. I'll just go into, and then I realized I actually needed it. So I think, it'd be good just to hear where people are at. Data modeling as well, and the relationship of different data tables is also quite important. But again, it'd just be very interesting to hear where people are at. Of course, for me, the visualization and presentation and layout and structure is critical. So it'll be really interesting to see where people are at.
So it looks as if most people are struggling mostly with DAX. So that can be pretty tricky. And the other three were kind of, Power Query, data model design, and visualization and presentation and layout structure. So that should give you a bit of an idea for starting. So we should be just about ready to go. So Lance is going to take us through. So I'm going to hand over to you, Lance, now. There's a last poll in there to see who is ready to go, or sort of a trick question, isn't it? Oh, there's always one. There's always one who says they are not ready to go. There we go. I'm going to hand over to you now, Lance, to take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, thanks again, Danielle, for hosting myself, and of course, giving us the opportunity through Full Stack Modeler to share a few things. So I guess the key thing for me, can you see my slides there? So really, I'm not going to delve too much on Full Stack Modeler, other than to say this is a journey. It's a journey for everyone who's using spreadsheets, from the basic spreadsheet all the way up to the advanced financial modeler. But what we're going to focus on today is Power BI and the importance of really understanding that and how do you use that. And really, one of the most important things is understanding how do we adopt to new technologies and change. So these are the sort of things I want to cover. Please put your questions in. I'll answer them as we go. Of course, there'll be some question time at the end. So adapting to change, my financial modeling and Power BI journey. I'm going to touch on that a bit. We actually got a question today that came through before, and I actually changed my slides to talk about the financial modeling journey, because it's as important as the Power BI journey. In fact, I think it's more important. If you're not a financial modeler, you don't know how to build proper models, then you're jumping too far ahead in Power BI just yet. I mean, of course, there's for other reasons. We're going to talk about Sarah's Bakery. So Sarah's Bakery and Sarah's Bakery's journey is actually part of the Full Stack Modeler journey. So this is a business that, in terms of, we take her through from a market store all the way through. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your journey, about where people can go to next, about where they want to go to. And then we're going to dive into the Power BI rabbit hole. So a couple of slides. I think all these slides will, of course, be shared with everyone. For me, when it comes to adapting to change, and then we talk about a whole range of things, whether it be Power BI or dynamic arrays or modular spreadsheet development or any number of different things that are coming at us at a rate of knots around technology, we've got to see it as an opportunity for growth and really take it as a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. For those that don't know about growth and fixed, Carol Dweck, there's a great clips and videos and books on mindset. That's where you find the opportunity to change, and when you're faced with difficulty, that's where you learn the most. And of course, you've got to go backwards to go forward. So when I first started learning and playing with Power BI, I found it very frustrating, and I went backwards. I felt like I was back at just learning how to build. When I first started building financial models, it's like, this is incredibly painful. It's incredibly difficult. So you have to sort of be comfortable with a drop in productivity, and then look forward and sort of go to new beginnings. You can't just jump to the forward. And I guess that's often people see what I'm doing. They don't realize that I've had to struggle to get to that point. And you don't get to this point without a bit of hard work and sweat and tears, of course. So my Power BI journey and my financial modeling journey. So I guess I'll start with financial modeling, because for me, it started off with just doing spreadsheets as an auditor, moved into VLOOKUPs and pivot tables, and then it moved into auditing an actuary's model, and then it moved into investment banking and building cash flow models and three-way models for M&A and corporate finance at Investec Bank. And then beyond that, it was like, then I started to realize actually the true power of financial modeling, when you're starting to build models that were getting audited, people were investing in it, and that was really useful. However, there was a whole new world developing whilst I was building financial modeling skills. It's the analytics world. So for me, the way I felt this pressure that I needed to, as a financial modeler, understand analytics. It was often like this: there's the data modeling and there's the financial modelers, and neither shall the two ever meet. They shall not talk to each other. They have different languages. They don't understand each other. And I thought, we've got to bring these two groups together. We've got to actually work together, because we both focused on data. We both need data. And that's a really important part. So, and also being stuck in Excel. Yes, I love Excel. Hashtag Excel's not dead. I'll always say it. But we've got to learn other skills. We've got to learn other tools. For me, Power BI was the next tool that I wanted to learn. So I guess I started really basic on Power Query within Power BI, and really to try get the data into it. So ultimately, the purpose of that is to really get horizontal information, because normally financial models work horizontally through a time series. Now I had to work out a way how to flip it vertically. So I had to do that in a way which I'm going to cover off later, how I did that. There's a number of different ways you can do that. You can transpose within Power BI, or you can use I use dynamic arrays within the model. Then I started to explore visuals. I completely sidestepped DAX and MScript exactly for the reasons that everyone says it's too hard. I started doing it and I thought, I feel like I'm just going down the wrong path. It didn't feel right to me. So I sort of using a tool called Acteris, which again provided some really great visuals. I think we did a meetup, Danielle, in Sydney, pre-COVID around advanced financial modeling, where I was showing some really cool visuals with Acteris. Now, Acteris build the whole data model for you. What's that?
Remember those days when we had face-to-face
Yeah, those
meetups?
days when we did face-to-face meetups, exactly. So I guess I started to sort of look at the visuals of Power BI and thought, wow, this is incredible, like slicing and dicing and doing all stuff. It really impressed me how things could be, and particularly with Acteris and the way that they create their data model really easily. I thought, yeah, I knew I didn't need to know DAX and MScript, so good thing I didn't waste my time. However, as I started to progress, I started to realize, well, I don't want to be reliant on someone else to build my data model. I don't want to be reliant on someone else. If I'm going into a client, I want to be able to do stuff. And I guess this is where my journey evolved into understanding and using DAX and MScript. So Power Query, obviously natively also sits in Excel, is really easy. But the moment you want to do some customized data collation and extraction, MScript, which is effectively your coding language within Power Query, the advanced editor, becomes a lot more flexible, just like you would with any other code like VBA or DAX. You are able to do things in a way that can solve problems that you would otherwise struggle with. And I guess that's where I started learning more how to apply it, not so much code, but get an understanding of how to apply it. And then, of course, understanding the data model, understanding how to build those relationships within the data model. So in order for, again, to make sure that the three-way financial statements actually fitted really well, I wanted to build my matrix table of my income statement sliced by product. And you're going to see all of that here. We're not going to go deep into that. Of course, a lot of this we are going to cover in the full stack modeler in terms of some of the training around how you would do this. But of course, we're going to show you some of that. So Sarah's Bakery, right? So Sarah is really started a small store, and in terms of little bakery, started selling a mixture of breads and confectionery, and then she wanted to move to London. So then she did some profit analysis. From there, she wanted to do a big deal around a London UK acquisition. So we do some deals modeling to then global expansion. And the full stack modeler actually takes us on the same journey with Sarah as you're also learning basic profit analysis, then three-way deals modeling, all the way up to multi-currency, three-way rolling financial model. What I mean by three-way, of course, is the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Rolling, I mean income statement is replaced with actuals and your balance sheet with actuals. So you're constantly having a driver-based rolling financial model. So if we look at what this looks like within Sarah's journey, so we've got the profit analysis. Here we're using some analysis and trying to understand what a break even is. Then we're going to have a deals modeling, which that's actually the Power BI, which I'm going to show you shortly. And then we've got a much more advanced multi-entity, multi-currency simulation with, of course, your three-way modeling. Now, all of these are actually examples of what we build in full stack, and people will get access to all of this. But of course, we're just going to cover off on the financial model, the deals modeling, but showing it in Power BI. Daniel, any great questions coming out yet? I know I'm rushing through the content, but
yeah, besides giving us a really hard time because the percentages of that poll did not add up to 100%. And besides that, Christopher Argent saying that Excel is dead, which we are going to ignore. Other than that, I think we're right.
Fantastic. Thanks. So yeah, Chris, we'll take that one offline, mate. Anyway, so your journey. No, he's always, anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole for a moment. So your journey, I guess, as with my journey, this is about really trying to understand how do you progress from where you are today in the spreadsheeting world. So if you're doing copying and pasting, if you're really the slave to a spreadsheet, if you're one of those in the UK government, which is using the old format of Excel, and you're losing rows because you don't realize that there's row limitations and all sorts of really, really bad sort of practices, then, Giles, in terms of getting people on that journey for, Excel is important. Kenny with advanced financial modeling to build and design, really good models. And then for me, the modeling tech stack. So full stack model is about all of that. So helping people on that journey.
Can I just jump in, Lance? If anybody missed the debate last week, it's available on YouTube. So we actually had a debate between the three of you looking at three different points of view. So that's a kind of an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I did win the debate. So if you're understanding where you should bet your money, but I mean, like I said, all three of us agree that Excel is. And if you want to find out
who won, I'm not telling you because Lance will.
I think I just did. Anyway, so the key thing here is really to understand how to use the technology, how to apply it. Of course, we're going to spend a bit more time talking about Power BI today, and particularly some of the more advanced elements of that when you're trying to visualize that. But of course, this is a journey, just like everything else. And the full stack model is about helping people at various stages where they are on their journey. Okay, the rabbit hole being Power BI. Like I said, it's been 3 years in the making, this model, 3 years and an overnight success. I guess what we're going to do is we're going to go through, I guess the first bit is the Excel model, which we've got in the background, and how we sort of transpose that. We actually use a range of tables for the income statement and balance sheet and cash flow structure, along with dynamic arrays. Because our model expands, we want the ability to expand that as well. So dynamic arrays is really powerful in that way. And then ultimately we're going to then build the data model. Of course, I'm not going to do all of this live in the next 40 minutes. It's not going to be possible, but we do go through this process in terms of education. And the key thing here about the data model is you have all your tables, and really important to set up your balance sheet, but we're going to go through that in a bit more detail. But the key thing here is just looking at the structure of the data model, having a really neat structure centered around your dates table. So this is your dates time series. And if you think about the synergies between financial modeling and data analytics, it all comes down to time. All data has a time reference. And once you synchronize everything around time, then things become a lot easier. And when people don't synchronize around a date table, that's when your Power BI becomes really complex. So, having your balance sheet data, having your profit and loss data. Here we have two levels of profit and loss. One is at a divisional level, and one is at a business unit level, and one's at a product level. And then we have our cash flow. So we're going to go there. I see people already talking about the debate. Lance won convincingly. Thanks, Erica. Okay, I should try and focus on the slides, not the chat. It looks like it's just going off streaming. So I'm going to take you through this.
I'll share the transcript later in case you miss anything.
Yeah,
just
cool.
Focus on the Power BI.
So here we're going to really take you through. And by the way, as you said, the slides are going to be available for those that.
Apparently, you're unbearable.
Yeah, I saw that, Kenny. I'll take it up with him later. So Power BI is really important, not just because of the data modeling, but the structure and the visualization. So trying to make it really easy, making some numbers really big, and also having a table of contents. How do you navigate? Where do you go for things? So I think that's quite critical in terms of how you design the Power BI model. How do you put it in a way that's easy for people to understand and navigate is critical. So why don't we jump in? Unless there's anything in particular that people want to ask. So I think the key thing for me, and Danielle, we spoke about this before I jumped in. Power BI for me is not just a visualization tool. I know that's what it can seem like when I'm presenting. For me, Power BI is a data integration tool. So the way I say that is I want to. Sorry.
Yeah. We do have a question more about how Power BI sort of fits in with all the other tools. Maybe you could just give us a quick overview of how Power BI includes all of those other things like Power Query, because that's what you're using in the back end.
Absolutely, I'm going to go through all of those different components. Absolutely, as part of breaking that up. But I guess for me, And there's some chat about, it's cost expensive to share it. I mean, again, it's, Power BI Pro license, I think is $12 a month. If you call that expensive, that's crazy. Maybe it's the wrong organization. But the point I'm trying to make is Power BI for me is a data integration. So if I want my financial model, I want my rolling model, I want information about my finances, but I also want to integrate operational data. Then Power BI allows me to bring operational metrics, operational data sets from databases into Power BI. I can see them alongside, and I can actually have a full, strategic, operational, sales, marketing. And I've got another one, which is we're actually showing Power BI online, and I'll show you an example of that. But here for Sarah's Bakery, we've got, business units. So we have a table of contents. We can click through and show that. So the key thing here is around trying to understand the different business units. If I choose Berlin, Leicester, and New York, I can see all of those changing. I can choose particular time periods. I mean, anyone that's used Power BI will obviously be familiar with all this functionality. We can select by financial year and the like. So being able to slice and dice different aspects. We've got, obviously the product mix will change, is really useful. Looking at, different financial years and comparing all of that. So, the thing I like about Power BI is just if you lay it out really well, you can see your enterprise valuation. You've got you can start putting in financial modeling concepts into your Power BI, which often people get left out. So like terminal valuation, enterprise value, you can do all your calculations in your financial model. This is GBP thousands, and then have that all in. What you'll notice is I've tried to limit the number of different colors. So we've tried to stick with largely blue and shades of blue, but not go crazy. You'll see other Power BI dashboards that have got crazy. I want lots of real estate. I want some white space. I don't want to have everything cluttered on top of each other. And so really important to have the navigation at the top and the left, just like you would a website, to make it really easy. So this is a business unit focused, where we're looking at product mix, we're looking at sales, EBITDA, and OPEX. But now we want to sort of go more financial. So we've got two sets of income statements. We've got income statement by product level, and we've got income statement by region or by business unit. So if we go into, Kenny will have a talk about the pie chart. Sorry, we should do donuts instead. Anyway, so, so here you have income statement effectively by product. So we can select the different products. So if I want to select celebrity cakes, I can have my entire income statement sliced by celebrity cakes. And then here I can slice it by region, by coffee. Let's say I want to look at coffee and celebrity cakes. Let's say I want to just look at merchandise. I want to see how much merchandise I'm selling across the income statement. And I guess some of these costs are allocated and unallocated. So, the centralized costs and OPEX can sometimes be on the side. So pastry and all the rest. And also if I want to look at it by division. So if I want to look at Newcastle and other aspects, so that a region business unit will come to in a sec. So I think this is, a really useful tool, one place. And then of course I can expand this. So I can expand my income statement and I can see those details. Of course, if I wanted to do that, I need to just make sure I can expand that so that the numbers flow out. So I've got to sort that out. But ultimately, being able to drill down and drill through becomes really important. If I wanted to just look at particular years, I can. If I want to look at FY18 to FY21, I can put those side by side and I can look at that, for home pies. So I think just the ability to do this really easily is incredibly powerful. So if I want to look at homemade pies between FY18, FY21, and FY23, I can do that. If I want to look at my coffee sales for that same period, it's all there. Like, it's just incredibly easy to really go hunting for whatever insight you want. So this is, as I said, this is at a product level. So we'll just unclick these. At a product level, if I want to go back to the business unit level, I can go into my business units. And then here I can, if I expand my income statement here, we've got by business, by region, UK, US, and Europe. So it's the same income statement, but it's got a slightly different focus. So if I want to look at P&L and again, I've just done actuals. You could do actuals and budget and variance. Once you've got the structure in place, it becomes really, really easy. So same sort of thing. If I want to look at, homemade pies, same sort of slice, that's all possible. And then, of course, we have our balance sheet. So I think a while back, a couple of people showed the income statement. Now we're going to go full balance sheet. And then we can start looking at, the composition of, different asset classes, looking at cash, debtors, inventory, comparing that for different periods. If I want to look at different periods, I've got that. Again, same sort of ease of functionality, ease of interaction becomes incredibly powerful. So if there's anything else on that, I might jump to the visualization. I'll just quickly jump to the cash flow. So again, cash flow, really important. Operating, financing, and investing cash flow. So again, we can look at CFADs for those in the project finance world. Look at other parts of the cash flow. Ultimately, the operating cash flow. All of that becomes incredibly useful. So that's on the visualization part. And I guess the key thing for us is making sure that we have a nice table of contents that is clickable. People can look into it. But let's go deeper, right? Let's go look into Power Query. So this is the Power Query editor that sits behind this. So what we have here is within Power BI, you have your Power Query editor. So this is the same Power Query that sits in Excel. In fact, for me, I never even learned Power Query in Excel. The first time I learned Power Query was actually in Power BI, because this is when I started doing more data. I've never used Power Query in financial modeling because I've never needed to. I've always built a financial model without the need to do that. So ultimately, we have our dates table. That's probably the most important table. If you want to look at our data source is coming from an Excel file. Again, a little bit a hint for everyone. If you are going to use Excel, make sure it's XLSX or XLSM, not XLSB. Binary, I don't know why, doesn't play well with Power BI and Power Query. So don't use XLSB. It is smaller, it is more efficient, but when you get into Power BI, XLSB is not a good option. Danielle,
Great
do you want to?
Thank you.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I'm like, why is this not working? This number's like, I can see it in the spreadsheet and it's not working in Power BI. And yeah,
So
it's
your
actually been an issue.
I thought you did the calculations in Excel. Are you actually doing the calculations here in Power Query?
So there's certain key measures that we're doing in DAX, and we'll talk about that. But most of the hardcore calculations are still in Excel. So all the drivers and everything else is still sitting in Excel. But if we wanted to do certain measures and averages, then of course that still sits within Power BI under DAX. And then of course we've got to do some other data transformations as well within the M script. Okay.
Great.
So I guess we're getting the raw data, and we've got all our different tables, and then we have our balance sheet template. Again, the ability to take all these and using advanced editors. So I guess when you start going into M script and start working this is your M script, which is your advanced editor for Power Query. So when you start doing things that start becoming a bit more complex, you have to design the data and get the data in a way that fits the model. So what I mean by that is making sure that you have the right balance sheet and cash flow and income statement templates, which are actually sitting in Excel. So I think these need to then be transformed and applied and connected. So those relationships between the data and the data tables becomes incredibly important. Are there any particular questions?
There are a few, but I think they'll probably, we'll tackle those at the end. There's quite a bit of discussion about Tableau versus Power BI. I don't know whether you want to tackle that now or leave it to later.
I think let's leave it to later. For me, just quickly, Tableau was sold to Salesforce. Power BI releases features every month. There are things you cannot do in Tableau that you can do in Power BI. So already,
and vice versa.
Power BI. What's that?
And vice versa. but Power BI.
Oh, no, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I think Tableau is better for visuals, and I think certain visuals it does have it better. But there was one thing for me. Anyway, we'll come back to it. But yeah, my preference is Power BI, and I'll explain why. Apart from having to learn another tool for another 3 years, I probably can't spend that much time. But that's a side issue.
Actually, there's a good question from Neil. How to handle version control between different files, which is kind of like what you're doing here.
Yes, exactly. So I think obviously we have this is exact. So he has a version 4. So we've actually versioned our financial model, and we probably do the same version control within Power BI. Of course, I've just used this final full stack modeler, Sarah's Bakery. I haven't sort of applied a proper versioning, but within Model Citizen, we have a proper versioning system. We have major, minor versions, and just small edits and updates. So we'd use the same file versioning methodology for all files. So that's kind of applied here.
Yeah, and Dimitri asks the source of your data, is it exported from an accounting system? I mean, it could be. I mean, the way that the data is set up, it could be from a system.
Correct. It could be. I mean, the reality is, you can, if I go to get source or new source, I mean, this is again the integration that Power BI has to all of these other sources is incredible. So, here you have just a whole range of pre-developed integrators and ETLs for a whole range. So whether it's files like Excel, text, CSV, JSON, PDF, SharePoint, I guess SharePoint and Power BI is incredibly powerful for organizations that are running SharePoint. There's a very solid integration there. They're not even needing a database. Which is useful. But then, of course, on the database side, there's a whole range from SAP, IBM, SQL, and the range. There's obviously the Power Platform. There's Azure, which is Microsoft's version of AWS, which is the hosted virtual machines as well that you have. You've got a whole range of services, and you've got your other online services and then other. In fact, I started my journey going not to Excel. I actually started going to Google Analytics. So I learned to play with Power BI by using this Google Analytics connector, because I thought the Google Analytics, this is before Data Studio, right? I think Data Studio is awesome. So for my Google Analytics, I just use that. But when I started using this Google Analytics connector to get familiar with Power BI. And so we built for our own, for in-house using the Google Analytics connection. And then, of course, there's a whole range of others. And what you'll notice is there's betas all over the place. So there's more and more coming on. And I guess this comes back to the point of Power BI versus Tableau. For me, it's about data integration. Chris, you'll like this. You see Venna is up there. So I think that the key thing for me is understanding the connectors. That's more powerful. Visualizations aside, I think the connection and the data management of Power BI is far more advanced. And a SurveyMonkey and the rec. So yeah, 80 data source connectors at last count. Thanks, Ron. So yeah, I think for me, that's why the whole struggle is in the data world. So if that's all in the Power Query editor and the advanced, I might go to the data model. I guess the key thing here that we're trying to look at is just trying to understand, if you start looking at the different connectors and understanding how each of these work, it's important to manage those relationships and understand how each of the relationships work. You'll notice from this relationship table, most of it comes back to the data table, the dates table. The reason for that is everything, it really resolves around the date. Income statements are date-based. Pretty much everything that we do as financial modelers and data modelers is date-based. And that's how you get the data tables and the relationship and the data model working really well. Of course, we've got other connectors. So we've got other, not connectors, relationships between the business unit, for example. So the business units table and obviously the profit and loss data, because you want to have profit and loss by business unit. So that's how you create your second level of hierarchy around products and regions and data. So you've got the tables. Those tables and structures and templates are sitting in Excel. I'm going to go to Excel shortly once we've finished this. So I'm going to go further down the rabbit hole to kind of show you how the Excel model was built to get to this point. So I might just pause there for a moment to see other aspects of that.
Yeah, no, we're good. There is a lot of questions. We are not going to get to all of the questions.
I did see Sebastian did say something helpful to do a step-by-step guide for Power BI beginners to connect financial models to Power BI. Yes, absolutely, Seb. We actually do that in the full stack modeler. So if you want to learn how to do that from start, we can do it. We just don't have time to do it now. We've got another 24 minutes, and I still want to answer a few questions, and I want to go to my Excel model, because part of the challenge, and it's a good question, part of the challenge is actually understanding our model structure. Our financial model structure becomes incredibly important for a data model. If we don't have a really good structure, we haven't applied one of the financial modeling standards, be that FAST or BPM or the ICAW's financial modeling code, if your model doesn't conform to those standards, then you are not going to be able to get anywhere close to this sort of level. And that's why I say building an Excel model and having it conform to standards and really solidly built is absolutely the first step. There's no point in jumping into Power BI or any tech for that matter, jumping into that before you don't know the fundamentals. So if you know the fundamentals and you're confident with those, absolutely, then you can go. But you can't build a house on top of really shaky foundations, because it's just going to land up in pain and it's not going to work. And then we'll blame the tech for everything. We'll blame Excel for everything, but actually it's ourselves. We haven't learned how to use the tools properly.
Absolutely. So let's jump into Excel and finish the presentation, and then we'll take the questions after.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on something which I saw in the stream. So just quickly on the transformation, enterprise DNA absolutely is a great place to start. This date query parameter is from Enterprise DNA. I think they created it. I think it's made its way around the world. So this is a really, really powerful date query that you can run that creates your date table for you. So, we're not going to, we will show you how to apply this, but not show you how to write it, if that makes sense. So the importance about doing things like this in date and MScript is actually not how to write it, it's actually how to apply it. So when you've got someone's MScripts, like when you've got someone's VBA code, you use it, you can read it. A lot of this is pretty straightforward. You can see what it's saying and what it's writing in terms of days of weeks. And the key thing here is being able to change. I can change my entire model for my financial year start, my model start, and I can invoke this query and it runs my date table. So by invoking the query, I can change my entire data model to fit whatever financial model I have, irrespective. So that's really useful. Okay, so sorry, Danielle, I had to just go back because I did see something on Enterprise DNA, and I do want to call out Sam McKay and Enterprise DNA. They've really done some huge, we wouldn't have been able to do some of the stuff if it wasn't for the work of Enterprise DNA. So I might jump into the financial model for those that are not familiar with the structure of this model. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is create an output section of the model. So we've got all our assumptions. We have business unit dashboards, and we've got all the standard stuff, I guess, three-way financials. We've got an annual summary tab, all of that sort of stuff. Again, if you can't build something,
is right. It's a Medano model, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I think if you can't build outside of Medano, if you can't build a model like this to start off with, forget about Power BI. Forget about jumping in to try and build what I showed you in Power BI until you've built a really solid model. So ultimately what we're trying to do here is trying to take it, and it doesn't have to be a Medano model. We just happen to build using it. It could be any Excel model, but you need to create an export tab. So you need to create a vertical tab. So the time series is running downwards, right? And what you'll notice is now we're using dynamic arrays, right? And the reason we're using dynamic arrays is because it allows this model to be flexible. So Medano allows models to be flexible and expand. So dynamic arrays, and I'm not going to go into that path now. Again, we cover dynamic arrays in full stack as well. But using dynamic arrays across is incredibly powerful. So you'll notice in dynamic arrays, first formula, and then the rest get grayed out, and that goes all the way across. So it's incredibly powerful to run that. And then that's the first part, is really the data export out of this financial model into Power BI. Then we go into the Power Query and we pull that in. But the template is as important. So my income statement level 1 hierarchy is important. So understanding the account names and the hierarchy is critical, because that helps me set the matrix for my income statement in Power BI. So that's an important part. There's also index level 2. So one is by product. There's a different level, which is by region. And then of course we have our balance sheet. We have an aggregate account, and we have a more detailed account. So when you saw that I expanded the balance sheet and the cash flow and the income statement, that's my 2 index levels. So understanding how those roll up. So of course, having cash, debtors, inventory, and other current assets roll up to current assets, including the total. That's level 1 indexing, being the current asset, and then you have your level 3 being the more detailed, and of course your total is your level 2. So that's all really useful. Again, important to be able to, if I want to change the chart of account structure, I change it here. If you have to build a chart of account structure in Power BI, good luck. It's incredibly complex. Rather use the chart of account structure from your financial model. It's all there, it's in one place. So being able to leverage the financial model account structure, being able to manage the financial model outputs for Power BI is incredibly useful. So yeah, that's it. I think OpenBox, by the way, also has a connector directly into Power BI through a flat file. I think they've also done something similar. So I think the power of modular spreadsheet development, be it OpenBox or Medano, is incredibly exciting for me, because we are able to build models incredibly quickly and also manage a whole bunch of things, very, very quickly. Okay, so that's almost it, Danielle. That was a quick fly through. Oops, not that.
Fantastic. Okay.
We've got another 15 minutes or so, 17 minutes for questions. So
we got some great questions here. I'm going to start with one from David Taylor. I haven't seen David for a very long time. Hope you're well, David. David says Sarah's bakery solution puts a financial model in Excel and then surfaces it in Power BI with a few measures and visuals on the pages. So his question is, should we consider doing the financial model in Power BI and leaving Excel out of the picture?
Good luck with that. I think in a financial model, if you think about what it's actually doing and actually what it takes to build a financial model, it's incredibly complex in its own right? So I think if you're trying to do too many things with one tool, you get into trouble, right? You need to choose the right tool for the right purpose. And yes, use a screwdriver for a screw, not a hammer for a screw. Use a hammer for a nail, right? In case I just got that wrong again. It's important to understand your tools. It's important to understand how you use them. And ultimately, I wouldn't recommend, in fact, I don't know anyone that has built a 3-way model in Power BI alone. Excel is incredibly powerful, and it's still useful.
There's a few questions about what you used Excel for and what you used Power BI for. So maybe you could just go over that bit again.
Yeah, so I'd say I'd use Excel for the engine. I always come back to Excel being our decision-making engine. So if you're driving a car, the engine of the car is our Excel. If we are race car drivers, we are using and building our engine, right, using Excel, because we are able to change how many valves we want, or how many horsepower, or what's the size of the fuel tank. We're building a custom-made engine for our client. So, we need to build something that suits them. The moment you get into a tool that doesn't allow you to be creative, and that's the beautiful thing about Excel, it's a very free-flowing, creative environment. Power BI is not that. Power BI is a data environment. They're very different. A data environment is extremely well controlled, very, very rigid in terms of what you can do. So, for instance, getting data in and managing that needs to be really well controlled. So, when you're going out of the Excel world, which is a very uncontrolled world, which is fun, but dangerous in its own right, going into a data world, you're putting on control and structure, but that can also hinder your ability to be dynamic. So you need both. They don't replace each other.
Yeah, just, I don't know if you can see the rest of the questions, Lance.
I think there was a question around people wanted to see some of the DAX measures. So I might actually.
Yeah, that'll be helpful, I think.
Share that again. Sorry.
Akash wants to know if you're teaching Power BI from scratch in Full Stack Modeler.
Yes, we will be teaching. We will actually be going through really basic aspects of Power BI. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Full Stack Modeler is going to be teaching a whole range of things around all these different technologies. There's some more advanced things. There's an induction. We're going to go through a range of stuff. Power BI is not just the only thing. There's going to be financial modeling standards.
Like the whole spectrum, don't you? And Hammer is asking if you need to use Excel for the complex formulas and Power BI for measures, how much of the modeling can be done in Power BI, which is, I think you're going to address that now. Are we still going to do the crux of the modeling in Excel and then summarize and visualize in Power BI? Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So what we've got is we have our key measures. We've actually got them into key measure tables. So this is, again, a really good way of putting things around structure. So when you get into financial modeling, one of the first things you know about financial modeling is structure. Come on, Danielle, you know that. Structure, structure, structure. That's the most important thing you do in a financial model. Guess what? In Power BI, it's the same thing. In fact, you cannot get away from structure. You can get away with structure with no structure in Excel. You cannot get away with no structure in Power BI. It won't let you. So having key measures, and what we do is we group these measures together. So things like balance sheet data, total assets. So we want to try and aggregate certain things across different business units. We want to slice and dice the data. So in a financial model, you want to take a slice of a particular business unit by balance sheet. It's not so easy, but if you put it in these sort of tables and measures. So these are the DAX measures that we have. Some of them are reasonably straightforward in terms of calculating balance sheet and filtering it for particular dates. So what this is trying to tell you is we're selecting balance sheet values. Again, it's a table, and we're trying to calculate that and aggregate it for current liabilities. So that's why we have let me just expand this. So, the current liabilities is aggregating. So it's not that difficult to read. In fact, quick measures is a really easy way to get started when you wanted to do DAX. So you can start by just selecting drop down, max, min, just basic mathematical calculations. Start there, use your quick measures. And then after you've done your quick measures, you can then come back and you can start reading and then editing. And over time, build the confidence to do more. Ultimately, that's how you get better at DAX. So, net assets, this couldn't be an easy formula. Net assets is balance sheet total assets minus balance sheet total liabilities, right? That is not hard. Of course, it's like writing formulas, right? Sum if or sum is an easy formula, but do memult, right? If you use a memult formula because you've got to do dynamic arrays, that gets ugly. If you want to start using deep nested if statements, that starts to get ugly. If you want to use, other really complex, formulas, it starts to get ugly. But it's all about context and where you are and what you need to do. So, understanding the complexity is important to understand how deep you go in. So key measures for balance sheet, key measures for your cash flow, your CFADs, your cash flow available for equity, which is CFAE, cash flow available for debt. So we're putting all the key measures that you would have in a project finance model into Power BI to visualize that. The benefit of that is that someone can actually go in and look and understand that. It's some of the stuff is better to be left in Excel, absolutely. So if you want to do debt sculpting and you've got really complex logic, stay with Excel. Power BI is really good for visualization and pushing out visuals, but also if you want to start being more operational, bringing in other aspects of your business, not just a financial model for a deal, but let's say you want to bring in financial and operational data sets. Key measures for your income statement, this is obviously by product. So we can look at coffee, gross margin, and then of course you have your income statement by product, your income statement by area.
There was a question earlier from Adam about why the calcs are done in Excel when they can be done in Power BI, and what's the trade-off between doing them. And I think you've sort of answered that by looking at the DAX. There's a lot of powerful stuff you can do in DAX that is more difficult to do in Excel. So you sort of have to decide which is going to be the most effective for what you need it to do.
It's also a different formula, right? So I think the actual
Very
way you
different.
write it, like,
yeah,
this is if you have a look at this, right? This is, they're not straightforward formulas. And I think if you're thinking about, so for example, if you look at how many DAX measures I have in this model, there's not a lot. How many formulas were in that financial model? Thousands, right? So I think you've got to really have that trade-off to say, the other thing is, can people read it, right? Traceability and auditability. People can read my Excel formulas. Most people can't read this. So if it gets audited or someone else who doesn't understand Power BI wants to read it, it's not so easy to read. So I think there's a number of trade-offs around leaving the formulas in Excel, but then doing the aggregation and the reporting and other aspects in Power BI.
Yeah, there's a question from Tajay saying, can you feed the inputs back from Power BI into Excel to visualize the scenarios? That's quite tricky, isn't it?
It is. It's called write back. So write back is possible. I haven't heard of anyone doing write back to Excel. I know you can do write back into databases through direct query. I've yet to see that. If you can do it to a database, I can't see why you can't do it to Excel. I know Acteris has that capability in their models, but that's, again, another deep rabbit hole to do that. For me, we prefer to use Modeler, right? So people who have seen me use Modeler before, there's a very simple click and point, no formula writing. It's very easy, and you drag and drop. Again, we're going to cover Modeler in the full stack modeler because ultimately that's serving a different purpose. You can't slice and dice in Modeler, but you can change stuff live, and lots of it. I think we might even do one of those down the track. But I think for me, if I'm doing back and forth, it's important. I'll take that question, Jan. I'm a beginner. Where should I start? I think we started with that. You start with Excel. I think ultimately you have to start with Excel because Excel is the foundation of everything else. If you don't understand Excel, then you need to understand finance, theory, and accounting and business, right? So those core components is effectively what's part of those base foundations around the full stack modeler. And you need to understand business, you need to understand accounting, understand Excel, but ultimately you've got to cover everything. So Joshua, full stack, we will cover, we actually cover tech verticals. So we cover BI in terms of Power BI. We cover modular spreadsheet development like Medano and OpenBox. We cover simulation software like At Risk or Crystal Ball. We cover a whole range. If you want to find out more, go to the website. There's a whole range of things that are really, really useful around understanding what's in the full stack modeler. There's a lot of information. There's brochures. There's information around what we're going to cover. But the technology is going to change. So what we're going to cover now is actually going to be different to what we're going to cover in the future. And that's why I'm excited about the full stack modeler, because I'm going to be doing my quarterly tech update. So all of that is part of understanding
say might be good. We've got maybe just only 5 minutes left. So maybe you could we've had quite a few questions about full stack modeler and what it actually is and what's included. Chris Argent has asked if it says mindset is critical here. Does full stack modeler help with that? or is it just technical training? So you might want to just chat about that a little bit. Oh, and Ellen wants to know, how does Full Stack Modeler help for someone who knows how to build a three-way financial statement, or because Ellen is a FMI holder, do we need to go through the full education journey, or can you just learn, jump to the bits that you
can, it's your own journey. So I'm on the website. If you haven't seen it, I'll just quickly scroll down. Obviously Kenny's got a great video you can watch. Really the full stack. Just ping it there on the. So the full stack modeler journey is all of that. So great question. It's your own journey, learning at your own pace. We're not going to stop you from jumping into the technology, but the critical thing here is make sure that you understand the foundations. Make sure you can get mindset. Chris, thanks for the reminder. Mindset is critical. Mindset is probably, if you don't understand how to deal with change and deal with technology, disc profiling, personality profiling, self-awareness. As financial modelers, we get put under a lot of pressure. And how do we communicate, and how do we deal and communicate in complex things that we need to communicate simply? So communication and leadership and managing relationships. These are not personal relationships. These are client relationships around scoping. We can certainly help you with personal relationships elsewhere. Excel mastery, critical, right? Excel tables, pivot tables, modeling standards, case studies. If you shortcut keys and navigation, Giles is going to cover that in a lot of depth. Practical functions and training is critical. Kenny's going to take us through advanced financial modeling, model design. I'm going to actually put in my AFM, the Advanced Financial Modeler, which is my training, which I'm like yourself, Danielle. I'm an approved trainer for the FMI. We're going to give our as part of the full stack modelers who are part of the community, training examination content to help prepare them for that. Fast modeling standards, productivity tools, formatting, model risk governance. We're actually going to cover things that are not covered anywhere else. Model risk governance, and how do you set up risk frameworks within your company to manage model risk. Model review tools, data visualization. I guess that's why Kenny's having a crack at me for my pie chart. He's a stickler for visualization. Case studies. You're going to get lots of case studies. There's case studies in level 2, level 1, level 2, level 3. Obviously, induction is a foundation. So there are 3 levels. But when I say 3 levels, it doesn't mean that you have to do level 1 to do level 3. You can jump to level 3. But if you don't have solid foundations in level 1 and 2, then jumping into level 3 will actually be quite scary. So these are the 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, obviously, just that's the induction or foundation. In the modeling tech stack, we're going to talk about tech stack design. We're going to talk about what does your technology need to look like. The mindset for assessing tech. This is often the biggest challenge around assessing technology. Coding languages. We're going to touch on what are the coding languages we should learn and shouldn't learn. BI, tech jargon, dynamic arrays. We're going to cover dynamic arrays and give you a real run through around using dynamic arrays. Worked examples and financial models built in dynamic arrays. We've got a financial model that will share Power BI, Monte Carlo simulation, modular spreadsheet development, and driver-based rolling forecast using visualization tools. Whew, that's it. 1 minute to go.
Well done. Full marks for timing. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much, Lance. That was brilliant, and well done for getting through all of that. There you are. Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. I am going to include a transcript of the chat. We've got, I'll send out some of the information through on the email tomorrow. I know you've got some slides and some downloads and things that we will include in the email as well. So thank you for making all of that available to us, Lance. That was fantastic.
Sure, no problem. And yeah, if you want to learn more, come to the Full Stack Modeler, come learn. It's a journey. There's lots to learn in the space. It's not just about the tech. There's a whole range of other skills that you need to learn in order to be a really proficient, holistic Full Stack Modeler. And yeah, it's exciting time. So thanks, Danielle, again for hosting us, and it's great to see, you know, such a huge audience and such a passionate crowd.
Yeah, it was a big one. So thanks, Lance, and I'll